Conventional medicine versus out-of-pocket medicine. It sums up to a set of tools that are based on symptoms and diagnostic driven. They have the limited amount of time. They have to document properly to get paid. While with us, we don't have to report to another agency because it's an out-of-pocket expense. So you have more time to go into detail and focus on what really matters in the patient's history and current status.
Hey guys, welcome to another edition of the Biohacking Brothers, Beyond Biohacking with my brother Miguel and our one and only Dr. Rudy.
Adopted.
Oh, baby.
So, last episode we talked an extent about labs. We actually did 2 episodes of that because we went over a lot of different labs, what they mean, why they're important to you, Rudy, and why they should be important to everybody listening here if we're talking about optimization, biohacking, and the like. So what I wanted to get into now is just for people's sake, whoever is listening, because a lot of people are like, the biohacking is new for them, right? And a lot of times it can be scary. Like we get a lot of people that, we run such deep labs that these are markers that they've never even heard of. Mm-hmm. So a lot of times they want to go back to their doctor and their doctor is kind of like, when you're not trained under the lens of optimization, it can be hard for a traditional doctor to kind of give you that sort of like big picture, right? And so what we wanted to get into today is, what does an optimization consultation look like and sound like? Well, like what kind of questions should a patient be asked from his doctor? And again, like I'm hoping that with this new biohacking wave that a lot of doctors get into this movement and start to kind of up their game, if I will, right? And in terms of how we treat patients, instead of just prescribing a medication or prescribing a procedure, let's talk about some lifestyle habits that we can change so we can actually address these markers without pharmaceutical intervention. But we do have a very scary hormone imbalance situation going on in the world. So from your perspective, what does a consultation look like?
Yeah, so that's where the art of healing steps in. Yeah. So everything we've talked about so far has been, go to your labs, here are the markers, speak to the coordinator. And at one point, the patient comes face to face with the doctor. Yeah. And that's the most important thing because this is the patient-doctor relationship. Mm-hmm. This is the healing touch that unfortunately a lot of my colleagues have lost. A lot of my colleagues have to follow what the suits are telling them, corporate is telling them you have 15 minutes, check those boxes. There's almost no spirit of healing happen. Yeah. Why I love what I'm doing, it's because I'm allowed to spend time with my patients. I get to know my patients. So let's start first with what it should not be like, right? The average internal medicine visit, which I'm an internal medicine physician, when I took insurance, that's what we had to do. If you're in an HMO or you at a clinic, you get 15 minutes per patient. 15 minutes. While you're doing that 15 minutes, you have to document. Yeah. So most doctors are barely looking at the patient. They are typing on their computer because you have to get all of the specifics of that documentation for to be able to be reimbursed at a certain level. So and
for liability purposes.
For liability too, but it's mostly for reimbursement because if not, you'll get a call from your biller. Be like, doctor, the patient came, you didn't ask them about their social history. So you missed that. We cannot bill this level to get this reimbursement.
Wow.
So you have to hit a bunch of what they'll call high-risk criteria to do this. Those are important to ask. But at the end of the day, it's almost a checkbook, a checklist that you check, you document. The patient will be like, but doctor, you forgot. Oh, that's going to be for next visit. So that's the practice I used to be able to be forced to do. I'm so glad I'm out of there. So the way it should be. So by the time the patient comes to me now, it's the consultation. And the patients have been waiting. They did their blood test. They see a lot of reds. They're like, oh my God, and I'm meeting the doctor. So First thing, of course, I introduce myself. I ask the patient, how did you hear about us? I do the first 5 minutes where I try to break the ice. Because again, the patient coming in, they're nervous, they're anxious. They're like, oh my God, they have a list of questions. Who's that doctor? It's the first time I'm meeting them. Who's that guy? So I try, sometimes I do a little joke. I do a little thing to try to break the ice.
Yeah. Right? Humanize the experience.
Humanizing the experience, right? Because if not, it becomes like this pedestal. I'm all the way up there, the patient's all the way down. I try to stay on the same level and kind of level down. That's why I'm always asked, who told you about us? Oh, so-and-so. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, good. You know about this. And then do you know who we are? We're health, wellness, and longevity. My goal is to help you feel your best, look your best. So we kind of do a little pleasantry introducing. Then I go over the medical history. So, we have a very long medical management form that we have our patients fill where we ask a lot of questions, detailed questions. And Miguel, you were instrumental in developing this. Right. And I love seeing this because when I read it, and for our patients listening to this, I read all of them. Because it gives me, before I come to the consultation, I have an idea of who you are, who the patient is, what their limitations are, and what their goals are. And our questions go deep, right? Go very deep.
Right. And to kind of just add to that, and the reason why, just anybody listening, the reason why, at least ourselves, we make you fill this out is so that you don't have to spend those 15 minutes with, wasting time on these history and, what kind of medications are you taking, and you review this before, so you have an idea of what you're stepping into before you step into it, and you don't have to waste the patient's time asking these questions. So it's crucial to actually get that history.
So before you continue, I feel like we have to lay out the context a little more of sort of like the ancestral living versus modern day living. Well, conventional medicine versus out-of-pocket medicine, which is what we do, health optimization, longevity medicine. Now, two things. Number one, 99% of doctors don't go into medicine to hurt the patient. So they're well-intended, but unfortunately, they spend years going through residency and learning from books that are pharmaceutically supported, and they learn, it sums up to a set of tools that are based on symptoms and diagnostic driven. So if you think about it, you go in there like, are you short of breath? Are you still taking your medications? Do you have any side effects? Are you depressed? Or are you having problems sleeping, right? Have you taken the new vaccine? Whatever it is. And they have the limited amount of time. They have to document properly to get paid. While with us, we don't have to report to another agency. And we're not governed by the same, laws, because it's an out-of-pocket expense. So you have more time to go into detail and focus on what really matters in the patient's history and current status.
Right? You said you're going to get a call from the suits if you don't do A, B, C, D, E, F, G. Like Miguel and I are not going to call you like, oh, you didn't do this, Completely, so you have a lot more freedom to be that healer, right? Which is why what doctors get into this in the first place. So it's kind of a very sort of congruent thing.
Yeah. And you said something, you both said something I need to speak about, because I'm not here to speak bad about doctors.
No, we're not. That's why I wanted to say what I said.
Speak bad about conventional medicine. No. I'm a conventional trained doctor. The bad thing is we get, it's almost a rat race. Yeah, right. Most doctors, 99% of doctors go into medicine because they want to help. They really want to do. Sometimes the system takes the healing out of the doctor because they get crushed. But that's why a lot of doctors now are escaping that. I'm looking at internal medicine. A lot of doctors are going into the MDVIP, the concierge medicine, where it is cash pay. So they can be liberated to be able to spend more time with their patients. Yeah. But it's still for those internal medicine physicians, even when they escape the insurance model and they go to the cash pay, my recommendation for all of them is to go to the journey that I went through. Go to meetings, go to conferences, and learn more. You have to.
That's the only way you can educate
yourself.
What
I realized in medical school, that's when my education started. Yeah. That's not where it stopped. I've learned so much more, and I look at the way I practice now compared to I practiced 20 years ago. It's completely different. The basis is still the same. Our goal is to prevent disease. So conventional medicine has a set of things we know what kills people, cardiovascular disease. That's why they check cholesterol, although we'll talk later that it's not the end all of cardiovascular disease. There's always question, are you depressed? So there's those things they check. But we need to go so much deeper. Yeah. I encourage all my colleagues, we do continuous medical education. And sometimes doctors go and they do those weird CMEs. We have to do a certain CMEs every year. go deep, learn functional medicine, learn root cause medicine, learn nutrition. We only got 6 hours, if you're lucky, of nutrition, if you're lucky. And, you know, for me, my undergrad major was nutrition. I did a full bachelor's in nutrition, which is, I'm so lucky. I didn't do the typical biochemistry or psychology. So nutrition was my base. But I ask every doctor, go take nutrition classes, take an exercise class, take a mindset class, you know, to really be able to be well-rounded. Because when it comes to the science of preventing disease, you know, treating blood pressure, treating thyroid disease, conventional medicine doctors are good at this.
Right.
But round yourself up with what we always say, master the basics of nutrition, exercise, sleep. So,
and you said it amazing. I was just going to interject there. Like, because you're able to spend that time with the patient, and I've seen you do this so many times, because you're able to spend that much with the patient, you're able to get to root causes. Whereas if you didn't have that time, you would just be like, oh, this is a symptom, do this. You know, you have high blood pressure, here's a blood pressure medication. You have cholesterol statin, right? So, which is how the game is set up right now in conventional medicine. But because you're able to spend that time, you're able to really dig and find root causes. And we have so many of these patients like, oh my God. Now, the timing, yes, that makes sense. Doc, oh my God, nobody's ever told me about this, right? Because you were able to spend the time and dig.
Yeah.
You know?
It's when you do this, every physician that goes into that type of medicine loves it.
Yeah.
Because doctors went into medicine to do this, to really help patients, to really connect, and to really get results for those patients and heal. Yeah. Exactly. So now it's something interesting that I've developed maybe over the past 3-4 years. So once I've reviewed all the forms that the patient filled out, past medical history, past surgical history, what medications are you taking, you know, everything. Then I review all the questions. And then when I review the questions, then I ask the patient, so, okay, I've reviewed everything. Let's go over the reason for your consultation, why you're here. Yeah. And the way I engineer my questions, I have 3 axes that I look at. I tell them, I'm going to ask you how you're feeling physically, how you're feeling mentally, and how you're doing sexually. I take those 3 areas, and then I tell them, we're going to even put that on a number. From 1 to 10, in those 3 areas, where would you rate yourself? So I start first. Because, you know, because sometimes when I ask the patient, why are you here? Well, you know, I saw my friend that did this. I'm like, okay. I need a standardized way of approaching this. So I have those 3 scales that I look at. So physical, number 1. How's your physical energy? Are you tired? Do you need a nap at the end of the day? Can you keep up with your kids? Can you keep up with your work? Give me a score from 1 to 10. Physical still, your body composition. How happy are you with your body composition? What's your weight? What's your body fat percentage? How much muscle do you have? Give me a scale of this. Number 2, we go to mental health, mental energy. How's your mood? Are you anxious? Are you a more positive person? Do you have motivation? Give me a score from 1 to 10. Sexually, from 1 to 10. What's your libido? What's your desire? What's your confidence in your erection? How many times can you say, okay, I'm going to try to have sex, that you have a strong enough erection to finish? How satisfied are you and your partner are in the relationship? From 1 to 10. So once I have all this, now I have a better picture of what the patient goals are, and I've quantified it. So a lot of times I have patients who come to me, their main thing is sexual. Physical, you know, they work out, they are 8. Mental, they are 8. Sexual, they are 2. Yeah. We can help with this. Or the opposite happens. Yes. Sometimes they're like, I have no sexual issues. I'm an 8 on sexual, but I'm anxious all the time. Tired. I'm depressed. I'm tired. My physical is a 4. My mental is a 5. Yeah. So it's good for me to see, okay, which areas are we going to help? Because we know our treatments help all 3 of those areas. Yeah. But now I have a quantification of your symptoms that I can say, okay, you started as a 3. Our goal is continuous optimization. Nobody's ever a 10. You're only a 10 when you're dead. Right? You're always
or at least you can't sustain a 10 100% of the time. You know?
Even a 10, then let's try for 10.5.
I mean,
I'll move the scale. Nobody's has arrived, because optimization is not a destination.
No, and I would agree. Like, I don't think there's a more compliant patient than Carlos and I. including you.
And you guys are not even close to being a nine.
I mean, we take like 40 pills a day. We're very consistent. We do red light. We do cold plunge. And we do strategic, hormetic stress exposures by like hypoxic states. Again, we do all the things that a biohacker would do and then some. Yeah. And still, I don't feel 100% all the time, right? Yeah. There's times
you ebb and flow.
90, then you ebb and flow. Yeah. But for the most part, I'm in that 95 or above. Yeah.
So that's the beauty of being a human being. Yeah. It's you accept your weaknesses, you work on your weaknesses, and you celebrate your strengths. And life goes through the ups and downs. And accepting this and learning how to be graceful with your weaknesses and not boastful for your strengths is one thing that's really important. Yeah. So now that I've quantified for the patient, so I spent maybe a good amount of time seeing who the person is. Let's go over your goals for the consultation. I have a number for each one of those. That's when I look at the labs. Then I look at your labs. I'm like, okay, based on your numbers, again, remember, we've talked about labs already. It's not a binary, it's normal or it's abnormal. Mm-hmm. Where are you on the scale? Yeah. And I can say, okay, your symptoms of, your mental energies are 4, your physical is 6, your sexuals are 5. I think I can link those to your suboptimal testosterone level or to your suboptimal thyroid level, or it's because you have insulin resistance. Correct. So now I put your symptoms with your numbers. And this is when you can say that I'm not just going to follow a number, because now I have a symptom that I can trace to possibly what's the cause of the symptom. It's possibly this endocrine abnormality. And now I come up with a personalized plan. Yeah. So I'm like, based on what I've seen, this is the personalized plan to really help all those things we just said to move from wherever you started to get you 20% better, 50% better. Our goal is always to get you 70% to 100% of the best version of yourself. Yeah. Sure. And what's good with this now, when I do my 2-month follow-up, which is my best call to make with the patients, when you do, because the first call is always like, doc, I feel I'm tired, my energy, I'm
the whole list of problems.
And people are really not their best.
Yeah.
You're catching them not at their best.
You feel their energy is like, I need help. I went to see my primary. They told me it's in my head. I've seen every doctor. I love this. I've seen the head of this hospital who told me this and nothing.
Cleveland Clinic, all the names.
They told me nothing's wrong with me. Yeah. And I come in and I'm like, well, based on this, it could be your hormones. And, we're a testosterone replacement clinic. That's gone way beyond this. Yeah. But where our strength is to really optimize patients' hormones. Yeah, big time. Because hormones are define who we are, how we interact with the external world. We're only as strong as our hormones. Yeah. So I've become really a functional endocrinologist. Yeah. Because my expertise now is to optimize testosterone, optimize thyroid function, and optimize insulin resistance. Yeah. If you optimize those 3 endocrine systems, that's when you're going to really thrive.
Oh my God, you have transformation.
Complete transformation to the patient. And that's when we always say endocrinologist is not a numbers-based specialty. It should be a symptom-based that takes numbers as a starting point and try to improve on them.
Yeah. Right? And I think for you, like you're great at looking at these markers, asking the right questions and continuing to dig, because like you said, there's so many doctors that are just so arrested by the numbers. And you're the type of guy that, hey, you can have 300 levels of testosterone. Doesn't mean that you're going to put somebody on testosterone, because a lot of times like their symptomatology won't check the boxes. It's like, okay, based on numbers, do you need testosterone? Sure, we could, but I don't think that's your problem. Maybe it's your iron. You have iron overload, which, we're going to spend some time talking about that. But I mean, you're 40 pounds overweight. Of course, right? So, et cetera, et cetera. So, and on the other side of the spectrum, I've also seen you do the brave thing, which is like, this doesn't almost make sense. And we've seen a couple of pages of this is like the outliers, where they have these androgenic blocks where they have good levels of testosterone, but still they're deprived. Yeah. And understanding that it's not just the numbers, and dare to ask the questions and dig and sometimes do, I don't want to call it experiments, but dare to go outside of the norm and do a therapeutic trial to see if it works.
Yeah. Again, we say that example all the time, and I'll say it again. The way we used to treat, for example, thyroid disease before, when we didn't have lab tests, if a doctor sees a patient and thinks the patient may suffer from thyroid disease, they give them a therapeutic trial of desiccated thyroid. They used to give patients desiccated testicles, bull testicles, to replace testosterone. And if you give one of those medications or treatments and the patient responds to it, I got my answer. Right. Now that we have the lab number, you follow labs, but that's secondary. No. It's a symptom optimization type of specialty. Yeah. That's what we're great at doing.
Yeah. So to recap, just so to understand, so for anybody listening, anybody who's looking for a doctor for optimization purposes, I think that, from what you said is, obviously doing the proper labs, but also having a doctor that will spend the time with you, that will spend the time with you outside of the normal questions that you get at every single doctor's visit that you ever go to, and to try to link your symptoms to actual specific markers, no matter what they are, that actually tell a story. Right. And then from there, obviously, we propose the plan and then we see transformation 6 to 8 weeks later, 95% of the time. So talk to me, how do you change gears now on the follow-up? Yeah. Because I know that your set of questions are different from when the follow-up now comes.
Yeah. So the follow-up is really my favorite. The 8-week follow-up is my favorite consultation because about 90% of our patients get positive results. Mm-hmm. So when I speak on my 8th week, I'm like, hey, so good to see you again. It's been 8 weeks. So how are you feeling? Most people, 90%.
Smile ear to ear.
I feel great. Oh man, it's been life-changing. Oh, this is good. And sometimes they are so excited, they start going, I'm like, okay, let's go back to my first note. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you what you told me on our first visit. Sometimes they forget. Yeah. So I'll put quotation mark. I feel like an 80-year-old man. I feel like, so I put it in quotation marks. So I'll go with the patient, I'll ask them how they're feeling. Yeah. And then I go, okay, let me go back. Physical, you told me you were a 4 out of 10. What do you feel like? Mm-hmm. Oh God, I'm a 7, I'm an 8. Mental, where are you now? Sexual, where are you now? My wife can't keep up with me. I love hearing those.
That's common. That's common.
When the wife is not optimized yet. So I go over the numbers and then I tell him and I'll remind him, like my handwritten notes. I'm an old school guy. Yeah. Although I think,
wish I could get you to do electronic notes.
You know what? My handwritten notes, I put a lot of personal things so that when I talk to the patient again, I'll tell him, hey, you told me that your goal was that you could go play soccer outside with your kid. And I'll ask you, have you been able to play soccer? And it personalizes the visit.
Yeah, no, but not only that, when you write notes, I forgot the percentage, but you retain like 60% more of the information of that patient when you actually write it down rather than electronically doing it, right?
And it's funny because you see hundreds of patients a month, and every time that I'm like, hey, remember this guy? You're like, send me his note. And I send you his note. And he's like, oh, remember this guy? He would do, and he told me this, and and you remember him personally, which is odd, right? It's rare for a doctor, but...
because even in my note, I always ask patients, what do you do for a living? What type of work do you do? Are you married? Do you have kids? Do you drink? What's your social environment? Mm-hmm. Because it makes me see the person as a real person, not just as symptoms and numbers. And when I do the 2 weeks follow-up, so I'm not, okay, this guy's a general contractor who's married, has 3 kids, or this guy's going through a divorce. That's what he told me. So I have all of this. So now I put all this, I look at the numbers, and I quantify. Okay, if you've improved physical and mental, great. You went from a 4 to a 7. Good. I'm like, okay, now we're going to do follow-up in 4 to 6 months. How can we get you from a 7 to an 8 or a 9? Right. A lot of times what I see happen sometimes for some patients, everything has improved, but the guys that have really bad ED, they can improve their mental and physical, but the sexual is still lagging behind. Yeah. And I'm like, okay, what else can we do? So it gives me, again, numbers, a quantification that I can be, I need you to go from here to there. And then that's our next visit.
And you know what's funny about like the way that, because we're just extensions of you on the patient management side, but what's really funny is, you typically get the guy that's like, you could hear it on the phone that he needs help, right? Yeah. And he's just in a bad mood and he's just at his wit's end. He comes in, you feel it, you have to break the ice because they're just like, whatever. Then 6-8 weeks later, it's a transformation. It's a brand new person. And then you have the year follow-up, right? Yeah. And then in between, you have a lot of things that go, up and down, up and down. So we call it when you're past the honeymoon stage, how do you maintain that? So it's funny, the strategy that you use about going back to the follow-up, when you get to your year, you're like, okay, hold on a second. Because, the guy's like, oh, I'm still feeling, now it was great. It worked great for the first 6 months. And now I'm feeling a little tired again. And, people sometimes fall back to their own, their old devices. But the funny thing is that you use the same strategy. You're like, wait, hold on a second. When you first came here a year ago, you told me A, B, C, D, E, F, G. think of your life now, a year later, and it's like, wow, I never thought of it like that. Oh my God, it's a completely different story.
And then it changes the patient's mindset. Because I'll get a lot of people, that's a great point. On the year follow-up, because a lot of times with hormones, there's a honeymoon effect.
For sure.
The best that you feel is the first, maybe some people 6 to 8 weeks, some people the first 6 months. Then that's your new normal. So it's no longer exciting anymore. And you forget how bad you used to feel. So in the 1 year follow-up, sometimes they'll tell me, Doc, I don't know how to feel. I'm like, oh, goodness.
It's not working.
Let's go. Yeah, it's not working. I don't know. Let's go. Can you give me more testosterone?
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, let's go back to your first visit. You're a 2 out of 10. You told me you had this. And I love to say that. Think about your life pre-optimization and post-optimization. And they're like, oh, okay. Yeah, I was like this. Okay, yeah, maybe I did have a peak of maybe a 9, but I'm settling at an 8 now. I'm like, good.
7.5.
7. And from there, wherever you are, you kind of settled a little. What else can we do to keep optimizing? So it puts perspective. And I like putting numbers to it because it quantifies it. Human minds like to have an objective number that you can follow. And another thing that's really important that I do different that I love, like today I had a podcast with somebody else and he's a health and wellness guru and he goes to his functional medicine doc. And I was talking about iron. Well, we eventually talk about this. But I asked him, what was your level? He's like, well, I don't know. I'm not sure if they checked, but they told me everything was fine. I'm like, you need to know your numbers. I'm like, your car, do you know what kind? He's like, yeah, it's a 8 cylinder, like this oil. You know, he knows everything about his car. So when I do a consultation with the patient, I usually tell them, open up your labs. We send our labs. Look at them with me because I'm going to go, okay, first thing we check, your glucose. So you see that number, it should be less than 100. You see yours at 105, my goal is to get this there. Let's look at your testosterone. You see you at 350. Where is it, doc? Page 3. Look at it. Page 3. You see at 350, my goal is to get you at that level. You see your ferritin. I make people read their labs because I want patients, that's my favorite saying, to become their own chief medical officer.
Well, a CFO knows his numbers. So a chief medical officer should know his numbers.
And you, your own CMO. So don't just say, in primary care, conventional medicine is great at this. This is my pet peeve, right? They go and see a doctor. They waited a whole year. They do the physical exam. They do the labs. And the doctor will say, if you don't hear from me, that means all your levels are okay. I'll only call you if it's bad. What? No. I need to know. So I want my patients to follow with me and I go so it takes time, but and the second one, I do the same. Okay, you see this number? I want this number to be there. And I tell them, not just with me, every doctor you go, you should know, doc, what's my cholesterol number? What's my blood pressure? Doesn't it have to be like this? Do your research. I actually like when a patient, Dr. Google, that they went on Google.
Oh my God.
Most doctors hate that. I love it. Because that shows me that you are interested in your own care, that you went and did a research and you come to me. Before people go and buy a blouse, they'll do their research. And then you won't do research on your own health.
That's a good point.
Absolutely not. So the patient like, I don't have the labs. I'm like, open it up. Like, look at it. Or if they are with me,
remember this name. Remember this number.
Remember this number. And then, so that even if it's not with me, I empower my patients. Question your doctor. Know your numbers. Know what your goals are. And try to achieve it. Because where we are different as functional medicine, regenerative medicine, compared to traditional medicine, I see it as a partnership with the patient, whereas conventional medicine tends to be very paternalistic. Just, I'm telling you to do this, take this, see you in 1 year, don't ask me questions. That's how we
by the way, you bring up a great point that I'm just thinking about it because the whole I'll call you if anything is wrong, it completely disconnects the person from his own health and what they're doing on a daily basis, which is connected to the 9 of the top 10 killers of man. Lifestyle, right? So how do I know that I'm doing the right thing? If you're only going to call me after disease shows up, and that means 20 years of bad habits. Right?
And also it even reinforces that, okay, I'm only here to check what's bad. If nothing is bad, I don't get a call. But how do we optimize? And one thing I forgot to say in my talk after I asked the physical, mental, and sexual, I asked, okay, how's your nutrition? They're like, what? How's your diet? I'm like, okay, what do you eat mostly? How much exercise do you do? Do you lift weights? And I do all this. And I'm going to tell you on my 8-week follow-up. Now, this is another favorite of mine. So after I do all this, now I've had a rapport with the patient. Patient feels better. a lot of times that's when I ask, okay, we're finished. We looked at physical, mental, sexual. We have to go for our next visit. Then I'll take a pause and be like, how's your connection? They're like, huh? What? Social connection and spiritual connection. I want to know, do you have a group of supporting people?
Which, by the way, very, very few doctors even ask.
The very few, like maybe on one hand.
Yeah.
And I did not used to do this. It's because I've had now the freedom. I have the time with the patients. And, you know, we talk about mind, body, spirit optimization. So on my first visit, sometimes I will go over spiritual talks with some patients that are connected and open. But a lot of times it's on my second visit. Once we got to know each other, you know who I am, I know who you are. We've improved a lot of your physical ailments. We've moved the needle on the physical, mental, and sexual.
Now there's that trust.
Now you can open up to the spiritual optimization. You can open up to even your social contacts. You can open up more. So because we are way more than the physical body. We're experts at fixing and improving the physical body, but we need to go beyond just the physical body.
Well, I feel also, that's a great point. This is kind of just backtracking for a second. And what Rudy is speaking about right now, our typical lab has, well, our main lab for men has 73 biomarkers, while your average PCP is assessing maybe 10, 20 biomarkers. And then once we get them optimized, I mean, that's the next thing we're trying to do, this VIP, quote unquote, blood work.
Elite level.
Where it looks, what I like to say, 2-3 layers down, right? Kind of like the best example I always give is when you look at lipid panels, their cholesterol comes in fine, their triglycerides are fine, LDL, HDL, but then you go a layer deeper and you look at the oxides LDL, you look at the particle, the fractional size, and all of a sudden apolipoprotein A and B, as you saw mine today, that's completely off. So at the surface level, everything looks good based on medicine, but when you go 2-3 layers down, there's actually a problem that needs to be addressed. And that's the next stage after being with us for quite a bit of time. For those that want to go deeper, we can go even deeper, right?
Completely.
Yeah, which is that ebb and flow, right? Like it's never static.
Yeah.
It's never static.
So good.
So anything else?
No.
I mean, listen, I love the fact that you wait for the spiritual connection on the second and maybe even third visit, because you do have to build that rapport. You do have to build this sort of intimacy, which is rare, right? Like that's what I think the whole doctor-patient relationship should be. It's not about, oh, are you sick? Let me fix you. Let me just prescribe you medication. It's how do I enter you and just heal you? Because there's a spiritual component to all of us. And if that's broken, you always said best, man. If you don't feel your best, you're not going to be able to be your best. And you know, the emotion, your relationships have a lot to do with your health. So the fact that you actually incorporate that into your consultation tells me a lot about who you are. And for anybody listening, you should go to a practitioner that adopts the same, right? Adopts the same, because that's someone who cares about that side of your health, which is a huge influencer to your life. So
as you say, also your psychology cannot trump your biology.
Yeah.
But with your biology, you can trump part of your psychology, right? So getting them to that place where they can deepen their spirituality.
You know me and my sentences, my Dr. Rudy isms, right? Your psychology cannot trump your biology. The other one I like, you alluded to it, when you feel better, you can be better.
You can be better.
So my first visit, I'm trying to make you feel better. But my overall goal is to help you be better. Right.
And that we share that in common. Like when people come to us, they start talking about oh, I'm overweight, I'm this, and the whole time physically, I'm thinking about their brain and their heart, number one. But going beyond that, like as we patient management, it's like, hey, it's a lot more than just your body, man. How are your relationships doing? How's your leadership doing? Who are you in your work? How are you affecting other people? Because, hey, listen, we're in deep trouble. Like there's a lot of sick people. There's a lot of people that need help, and we need to be light in this place, right? And if I got you to a place where you can feel your best, you're supposed to inject that energy into the environment. I mean, we did a podcast with Francis about this, where, his whole objective is to bring that energy every day and infect people around him with it. Right.
But always, we talk about biological optimization because it's really difficult to have good psychology when your biology is not right. When your testosterone level is low, your thyroid is not optimized, you're overweight, you have insulin resistance, you have back pain, you have hip pain. It's hard to be your best.
And not adding the daily demands and tasks that we're driven by today.
It's hard to be the best version of yourself. But the closer you get to biological optimization, the more free you are to now be the best version of yourself. And at the end of the day, our goal is to help every person that comes in contact with us to self-actualize the best version of themselves.
Amen to that. Ooh, amen. Hey, Preacher Rudy. All right, guys. So listen, I hope you enjoyed this segment. You know, we wanted to keep it short for you guys, just to kind of recap. If you're into trying to optimize and getting yourself to be the best version of yourself, obviously start with a good set of labs and then find a practitioner. I mean, it doesn't have to be us. We would love to help you. If you have any questions, obviously give us a call and we'll point you in the right direction. But even if it's not us, just find someone that you align with and someone who's going to dig deep into your personal life, not just ask you about some metrics on a lab, because a doctor should not treat a piece of paper. They should treat the human being. And so find someone who is in line with that. If you have any questions, issues, concerns, obviously give us a call. We'll point you in the right direction. Share us, like us.
Follow, share, and like us. It's
there you go.
simple.
Follow, share, and like us. I can never get that right. Thank you, Miguel. Please do that. And until the next one, stay healthy.
And God bless.
And God bless.